Ladies and gentlemen, in the course of our lives, we will face moments where we are disrespected, where our character is questioned or our worth is undermined. These moments can be difficult, painful, and can stir emotions within us that we may not even understand. But it is in these very moments when we are wronged that we are given an opportunity to reveal the true nature of our hearts. And it is in those moments that we must choose not to react. Dignity is not simply a state of being, it is a choice. A conscious decision to stand firm in who we are, regardless of the storms that may rage around us. When we face disrespect, whether it comes from words, actions, or attitudes of others, our first instinct might be to react, to defend, retaliate, or even succumb to anger. But maintaining our dignity in these moments is a powerful act of self-control and strength. It is about choosing not to let someone else's behavior dictate how we respond or, more importantly, how we see ourselves. Our dignity is rooted in self-respect, the belief that we are worthy of kindness and respect. It is a reflection of our values, our character, and our integrity. When we encounter disrespect, it is essential to recognize that the disrespect is a reflection of the other person's behavior and not a commentary on our worth. In these situations, we are called to rise above the insult, to remain true to who we are, and to not allow the negative actions of others to alter our sense of self. One of the most important things to understand about maintaining dignity is that it is not about silence or passivity. Maintaining dignity does not mean you must accept or tolerate disrespect. It means you refuse to let the disrespect dictate your response. It's about keeping control of your emotions and staying true to your values even when others may try to provoke you. When we respond from a place of dignity, we show that we are not ruled by external circumstances, but by the principles that guide us. We demonstrate that we are not weak, nor do we need to prove our worth to anyone. At the core of maintaining dignity is the idea of self-regulation. In moments of disrespect, emotions can run high, and the temptation to lash out or retaliate is strong. However, reacting in anger or frustration can lower our standing and drag us into the same level of negativity we are trying to avoid. In contrast, dignity encourages us to pause and choose our response carefully. When we resist the urge to react impulsively, we create space for a measured, thoughtful response that reflects our values and integrity. This shows a strength that is far more powerful than any outward display of anger. Another aspect of maintaining dignity is recognizing the power of silence. There is a great strength in choosing not to engage with disrespect. Silence can be one of the most potent ways to preserve our dignity. By not responding to negative energy, we create distance between ourselves and the source of the disrespect. It sends a message that we will not allow ourselves to be drawn into a cycle of negativity. In many situations, the best way to maintain dignity is simply to walk away and not give disrespect the attention or energy it seeks. Moreover, maintaining dignity is about the message we send not only to the person who disrespects us, but also to those who are watching. Often, how we respond to others' treatment is an example for others to follow. When we act with dignity, we set a standard for how we expect to be treated, and we show others how to respond to difficult situations with grace. In doing so, we create an atmosphere where respect is encouraged and negative behaviors are minimized. Lastly, maintaining dignity is a form of self-preservation. When we allow disrespect to pull us down, we lose a part of ourselves. But when we stand firm in our dignity, we protect our emotional and mental well-being. We preserve our peace, our sense of self, and our happiness. We ensure that no one else's actions have the power to define us. Our dignity is a shield that, when upheld, guards us against the toxic effects of disrespect and allows us to remain grounded no matter the situation. In life, we often encounter moments of conflict, misunderstanding, or even direct disrespect. The way we respond in these moments shapes not only how others perceive us, but also how we perceive ourselves. It is easy to react emotionally in the heat of the moment, especially when we feel attacked or unjustly treated. However, responding with grace rather than reacting impulsively is a powerful choice that speaks volumes about our character and maturity. To respond with grace means to choose a calm, measured, and thoughtful approach rather than a knee-jerk emotional reaction. It requires us to pause, reflect, and consider the situation before we speak or act. This kind of response does not mean passivity or indifference to injustice. Rather, it means that we do not allow our emotions to control us or dictate our behavior. When we respond with grace, we maintain control over our emotions, allowing our actions to reflect our true values rather than the transient feelings of frustration or anger that may arise. One of the primary benefits of responding with grace is that it diffuses potential conflict. When someone disrespects us, it's often with the intention of provoking a reaction, a response that matches their negativity. If we choose to react with anger, frustration, or retaliation, we only fuel the fire, making the situation worse. However, by responding with grace, we take the wind out of the aggressor's sails. A gentle response, a calm word, or simply choosing not to react at all can diffuse a tense situation and change the dynamic entirely. It's not about backing down, but rather about not allowing the negativity to escalate into something more damaging. Graceful responses also reflect emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage our own emotions and to understand and influence the emotions of others. By responding with grace, we show that we have the emotional maturity to rise above petty disputes and focus on what truly matters. We are able to detach ourselves from the emotional charge of the moment and make a choice that aligns with our long-term values. This takes practice, but it can transform the way we handle difficult situations. Instead of being driven by the desire to win an argument or defend our pride, we focus on how we contribute to resolution and peace. Furthermore, responding with grace is often more effective than reacting with anger or frustration. When we react with anger, we may gain a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but the damage done to ourselves, to the other person, and to the relationship is lasting. On the other hand, a graceful response invites understanding. It allows the other person to see us as a model of composure and maturity. Our grace may even cause them to reflect on their own behavior and reconsider their actions. In this way, grace has the power to open doors to reconciliation and mutual respect, whereas a harsh reaction only closes them. Another important aspect of responding with grace is that it allows us to maintain our own peace of mind. In moments of disrespect or conflict, it's easy to get caught up in the emotional whirlwind, letting the actions of others dictate our feelings. However, when we respond with grace, we take control of our own emotional state. We are not allowing someone else's words or actions to disrupt our inner calm. This is a powerful act of self-respect, as it preserves our mental and emotional well-being in the face of adversity. Ultimately, responding with grace rather than reaction is about choosing to be the better version of ourselves. It requires discipline and self-awareness, but the rewards are immense. When we respond with grace, we not only avoid escalating the conflict, but we also demonstrate strength, maturity, and wisdom. It is through grace that we rise above the noise, choosing peace over chaos and understanding over retaliation. Grace is not a sign of weakness, rather it is the embodiment of strength, patience, and the ability to lead with compassion in difficult moments. In the midst of conflict, or when confronted with disrespect, it's easy to react immediately without considering the consequences. Our emotions surge and we feel an intense need to defend ourselves or respond to the hurtful words or actions. However, taking a step back and reflecting before responding is a crucial skill that can lead to wiser decisions, emotional balance, and healthier interactions. In these moments, the power of pause cannot be overstated. Taking a step back means creating space between the initial stimulus, the disrespect or provocation, and our response. This simple act of pausing allows us to regain control over our emotions and reactions. Instead of being swept away by anger, frustration, or embarrassment, we give ourselves the opportunity to reflect and process what just happened. This step is not about avoiding the situation, but about ensuring that our response comes from a place of clarity and thoughtfulness rather than from a knee-jerk emotional reaction. One of the benefits of taking a step back is that it helps to prevent escalation. In many situations, an immediate response can intensify the conflict. When we react impulsively, we are often reacting to our feelings of hurt rather than the situation itself. The other person may not even be aware of the impact of their actions, and by responding in haste, we risk making the situation worse. By taking a moment to reflect, we remove the emotional charge from the situation and prevent it from spiraling out of control. In doing so, we maintain a sense of control and create the possibility for a more constructive and calm resolution. Moreover, taking a step back allows us to put things into perspective. Often, when we're in the heat of the moment, we lose sight of the bigger picture. We focus solely on the disrespect or the negative behavior directed at us, and we react as though this moment defines us. However, stepping back gives us the opportunity to remember that this moment is just that, a moment. It does not define who we are or our worth. By gaining perspective, we allow ourselves to respond with a broader understanding, keeping in mind that the other person may have their own struggles or challenges, which may not be related to us at all. Reflection also allows us to consider our values and the kind of person we want to be in that situation. When we act impulsively, we may react in a way that contradicts our deeper beliefs or principles. Perhaps we value kindness, understanding, or forgiveness, but in the heat of the moment, we may lash out in a way that doesn't reflect those values. By taking a step back, we give ourselves the opportunity to align our actions with the person we want to be. In this way, reflection becomes a tool for self-discipline, helping us to avoid reacting in a way that we might later regret. Another benefit of stepping back is that it allows us to manage our emotions more effectively. Emotions, particularly strong ones like anger or hurt, are natural, but they can cloud our judgment. When we react based purely on our emotions, we might not take into account the long-term consequences of our words or actions. Taking a moment to reflect gives us time to process those emotions and to decide whether they are the best foundation for our response. This emotional regulation is a powerful tool that prevents us from saying or doing something in haste that we might later wish we could take back. Taking a step back also creates an opportunity for empathy. When we pause to reflect, we can consider the motivations of the other person. Maybe they are struggling with their own challenges and their behavior toward us is not a reflection of us, but of their own pain or insecurity. This kind of reflection fosters compassion and understanding, allowing us to respond with kindness and grace rather than defensiveness. Finally, taking a step back and reflecting allows us to make the most effective response. In many situations, it's not about reacting to the provocation immediately, but choosing a response that will resolve the situation with the least amount of harm. Reflection allows us to weigh the potential outcomes of different responses, helping us select the most constructive one, whether that's addressing the issue calmly, walking away, or letting it go entirely. This thoughtful approach often leads to more positive outcomes and leaves us with a sense of peace, knowing that we acted with integrity and wisdom. In times of conflict or when faced with disrespect, our natural inclination is often to defend ourselves, to prove our point, or to retaliate. These reactions are born from the instinct to protect ourselves or to correct what we perceive as an injustice. However, if we shift our focus from escalating the conflict to understanding the other person's perspective, we can transform the situation in a way that leads to growth, healing, and resolution. Focusing on understanding rather than escalating the situation is one of the most powerful tools we can use to navigate challenging interactions. When we focus on understanding, we step back from the emotional charge of the situation. In a heated moment, it's easy to be consumed by our own emotions, whether it's anger, hurt, or frustration. However, when we consciously choose to seek understanding instead of reacting impulsively, we create space for clarity. This shift in mindset moves us away from defensiveness and opens the door to empathy. By truly listening and trying to understand the underlying reasons for the other person's behavior, we gain insight into their perspective, which helps us respond more thoughtfully. Often, disrespectful behavior or conflict arises from misunderstandings, insecurities, or unmet needs. When someone lashes out, it might not always be about us. It could be the result of their own struggles or frustrations, or it could stem from a lack of communication. By focusing on understanding, we acknowledge that there is more to the situation than what is immediately apparent. When we choose to approach the conflict with curiosity rather than judgment, we are better equipped to uncover the root causes of the problem. This doesn't mean we accept poor behavior or let others treat us poorly, but it means we open ourselves up to the possibility that the situation might be more complex than it first seems. By seeking understanding, we can also shift the tone of the interaction. When we ask questions, listen actively, and show a genuine interest in the other person's perspective, we invite dialogue rather than confrontation. The goal is not to win the argument, but to open up a space for mutual respect. Often when we focus on understanding, we disarm the situation. We show the other person that we are not interested in escalating the conflict, but in finding a peaceful resolution. This can be a powerful way to de-escalate an otherwise tense or volatile situation. Furthermore, focusing on understanding creates the possibility for empathy. When we take the time to listen and consider the experiences, feelings, or struggles of others, we start to recognize that we are all human and fallible. People act out of their own pain, frustrations, or limited understanding. And while this doesn't excuse poor behavior, it can help us approach the situation with a more compassionate perspective. When we empathize with someone, it doesn't mean we agree with their actions, but we acknowledge that they too are dealing with challenges just as we are. This sense of shared humanity helps to foster connection, even in difficult moments. Another advantage of focusing on understanding is that it encourages thoughtful, measured responses instead of knee-jerk reactions. When we are defensive, we often react from a place of emotion and pride. But when we focus on understanding, we create the opportunity to choose a more intentional and effective response. A measured response is one that is more likely to lead to constructive dialogue rather than further conflict. It's easy to escalate a situation by responding out of hurt or anger. But when we listen first and aim to understand, we are more likely to respond in a way that promotes reconciliation and peace. In addition, focusing on understanding requires patience. It is not always easy to step back and resist the urge to react immediately. It takes practice to listen carefully, to ask questions, and to not assume that we know everything about the other person's motivations or feelings. However, the effort to practice patience in these moments yields immense rewards. By choosing patience over reaction, we give ourselves the space to think and the ability to act with clarity, rather than to be swept up by the emotions of the moment. Ultimately, focusing on understanding rather than escalating conflict leads to stronger relationships. By demonstrating that we care about the other person's perspective, we open the door to greater communication and connection. Even when disagreements arise, understanding helps create an environment of mutual respect where both parties feel heard and valued. This approach allows us to engage with others in a way that promotes peace and healing rather than feeding into the cycle of conflict. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools we have for emotional and spiritual healing. It is not just an act of letting go of resentment towards someone who has wronged us. It is a choice to free ourselves from the burden of anger, bitterness, and pain. Holding on to grudges or clinging to past hurts can weigh us down, affecting our well-being and our ability to move forward in life. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is an act of liberation that can bring profound peace and restoration, both to ourselves and to the relationships we cherish. At its core, forgiveness is a conscious decision to release the negative emotions tied to an offense. It does not mean condoning or excusing the wrong that was done to us. Rather, it means that we choose not to allow that wrong to continue to control our emotions or our thoughts. The person who wronged us may never apologize or make amends, but forgiveness frees us from the shackles of their actions. It allows us to reclaim our power, shifting our focus from what was done to us to how we choose to respond. One of the most significant benefits of forgiveness is that it releases us from the grip of anger. Anger, if left unchecked, can be toxic. It can build up over time, corroding our inner peace and affecting our physical and mental health. Holding on to anger and resentment creates a barrier to happiness and peace. We often think that holding on to these feelings is a form of justice, that by staying angry, we are punishing the person who hurt us. In reality, however, it is we who suffer as the anger festers within us, robbing us of the peace we deserve. When we forgive, we let go of the anger, and in doing so, we give ourselves the gift of freedom. Forgiveness also allows us to heal emotionally. Emotional wounds can linger long after physical injuries have healed, leaving scars that influence how we interact with others and view the world. These wounds can cause us to build walls around our hearts, keeping others at a distance for fear of being hurt again. When we forgive, we begin to break down those walls. We open ourselves up to healing and to the possibility of new, healthier relationships. By forgiving, we acknowledge that we are not defined by the wrongs done to us, but by how we choose to respond to them. It is through forgiveness that we allow our hearts to heal and our relationships to thrive. Furthermore, forgiveness fosters empathy and compassion. When we choose to forgive, we recognize that we too are imperfect and have made mistakes. Forgiveness invites us to see the humanity in others, acknowledging that they, like us, are flawed and capable of error. This shift in perspective can help us cultivate greater compassion, not only toward the person who wronged us, but also toward others in our lives. It reminds us that no one is perfect and that we all need grace and understanding. Another powerful aspect of forgiveness is its ability to restore relationships. When we hold grudges or refuse to forgive, we create a barrier between ourselves and others, often causing irreparable damage to our connections. Forgiveness, however, opens the door for reconciliation. It allows us to move past the offense and rebuild trust, creating a foundation for stronger, more meaningful relationships. While forgiveness may not always lead to reconciliation with the person who hurt us, it is the first step toward healing the relationship, whether that means moving forward together or simply finding peace within ourselves. Forgiveness also has a deep spiritual component. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of forgiveness, seeing it as a path to peace, healing, and spiritual growth. Forgiveness is often portrayed as a way to align ourselves with divine love and compassion. By choosing to forgive, we step into a higher state of being, one that transcends bitterness and retribution. We become more connected to our spiritual selves, embodying grace, mercy, and understanding. Ultimately, the power of forgiveness lies in its ability to transform both our internal world and our external relationships. It frees us from the past, allowing us to move forward with clarity, peace, and hope. Forgiveness is not easy, and it often requires deep emotional work. But it is one of the most profound acts of love and strength we can offer ourselves and others. In conclusion, maintaining our dignity, responding with grace, and focusing on understanding rather than escalating conflict are all choices that empower us to rise above negativity and strengthen our character. By taking a step back to reflect, we create the opportunity for wisdom and thoughtful responses. Forgiveness, as an act of liberation, further enables us to heal and let go of burdens that hinder our peace. These principles are not only tools for navigating challenges, but pathways to personal growth, emotional well-being, and deeper connections with others. Ultimately, they help us lead lives rooted in strength, grace, and understanding,